years old and 9, when he was circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin. And Ishmael his son was 13 years old, when he was circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin. And the selfsame day was Abraham circumcised, and Ishmael his son, and all the men of his house, born in the house, and bought with the money of the stranger, were circumcised with him.
All right, let's go to Deuteronomy 15.
Verse 1.
Yeah, started at verse 1.
Deuteronomy chapter 15 and verse 1. At the end of every 7 years you shall make a release, and this is the manner of the release. Every creditor that lends aught unto his neighbor shall release it. He shall not exact it of his neighbor or of his brother, because it is called Yahweh's release. Of a foreigner you may exact it again, but that which is yours with your brother your hand shall release. Save when there shall be no poor among you, for Yahweh shall greatly bless you in the land which Yahweh your El gives you for an inheritance to possess it. Only if you carefully hearken unto the voice of Yahweh your El, to observe to do all these commandments which I command you this day. For Yahweh your El blesses you, as he promised you, and you shall lend unto many nations, but you shall not borrow. And you shall reign over many nations, but they shall not reign over you. If there be among you a poor man, one of your brethren, within any of your gates in your land which Yahweh your Elohim gives you, you shall not harden your heart, nor shut your hand from your poor brother.
So, when you understand what this is, this year of release then is basically your ability to have your bankruptcy, your ability to get rid of this debt that you are carrying. When we get down to being born again, we have to understand that all of the things that we have performed in that old name. I always explain to people about this whole thing of when P. Diddy ended up changing his name because of the incident that happened in a club. That name had to be changed because of he couldn't get any more insurance in that old name. He couldn't do any more work in that old name because they remember all of those things. So when we deal with that, we have this change happening because he can't proceed in anything else. So when we come into this word, we have to consider that we are carrying around all of those old things over into this new life. And what I've seen a lot of is the propensity to merge the old name with the new name to try and keep part of that old name. So it kind of leads into that half rebirth situation, which is not something that you want to do. When you deal with Abram and Abraham, a lot of times people deal with that, but what we're talking about is a totally different meaning when you come to those names. When people try to merge their old name with the new name, you have to ask yourself, what is the meaning of that? And that is where it becomes a possible problem. Let's go to Exodus chapter 17.
Exodus chapter 17 and verse 1. And all the congregation of the children of Israel journeyed from the wilderness of Sin after their journeys, according to the commandment of Yahweh, and pitched in Rephidim. And there was no water for the people to drink. Wherefore the people did chide with Moshe and said, Give us water that we may drink. And Moshe said unto them, Why chide you with me? Wherefore do you tempt Yahweh?
Right, but of course they don't see Yahweh. See, they don't see that it's Yahweh that they're having the issue with. Who they see is Moshe, but Moshe is operating in Yahweh's stead. See, this is where a lot of issues end up taking place, because people see the man that Yahweh is using. They don't see Yahweh, so they don't consider that they are going against the Spirit, because the Spirit is trying to lead one way. Remember what was told to Moshe: I sent an angel before you to lead you in the way. Do not provoke him. So if the angel is trying to lead the children of Israel one way, and then you get in your own flesh and you want to lead another way, you are completely going against the angel of Yahweh, because he has a job to go one direction, but you're trying to go in a different direction. Now you have grieved the Holy Spirit. But we don't see that. You know, that flesh will only let you see the things that are important to you. So his reply was, wherefore do you tempt Yahweh? Go ahead.
And the people thirsted there for water. And the people murmured against Moshe and said, Wherefore is this that you have brought us up out of Egypt to kill us and our children and our cattle with thirst?
Right. Why you do this thing, man? This is all you. This ain't got nothing to do with Yahweh. This is for you to magnify yourself. See, this is how that flesh talks, and this is the leaven in the children of Israel. For that leaven is causing the children of Israel to speak how they want, when they want, to a servant of Yahweh. Go ahead.
Verse 4. And Moshe cried unto Yahweh, saying, What shall I do unto this people? They be almost ready to stone me. And Yahweh said unto Moshe, Go on before the people, and take with you of the elders of Israel, and your rod, wherefore you smote at the river, take in your hand, and go. Behold, I will stand before you there upon the rock in Horeb, and you shall smite the rock, and there shall come water out of it, that the people may drink. And Moshe did so in the sight of the elders of Israel. And he called the name of that place Massah and Meribah, because of the chiding of the children of Israel, and because they tempted Yahweh, saying, Is Yahweh among us or not? Then came Amalek and fought with Israel and Rephidim. And Moshe said unto Joshua, Choose us out men, and go out. Fight with Amalek. Tomorrow I will stand up to the top of the hill with the rod of Elohim in my hand. So Joshua did as Moshe had said to him, and fought with Amalek. And Moshe, Aaron, and Hur went up to the top of the hill. And it came to pass, when Moshe held up his hand, that Israel prevailed. And when he let down his hand, Amalek prevailed. But Moshe's hands were heavy. And they took a stone and put it under him. And he sat thereon. And Aaron and Hur stayed up his hands, the one on the one side and the other on the other side.
And this is the very one that they constantly have problems with. But do understand, when we look at these names in verse 7, it says, and he called the name of the place Mesa and Meribah. When we get to Mesa, it is testing, and Meribah is quarrel, provocation, and strife. So this place, because of what they did within this place, now this place has the name carrying it of the disrespect that was done in it. So this is why we have to be careful what name we end up taking, because you may be taking on some provocation, strife, quarrel thing of that nature. Understand, all Middle Eastern names have a definition, and you have to consider if you want that definition of what that is clinging to you. Go ahead.
You know, even here we say Aaron and Hur, and we know their great movie is Ben-Hur.
Right.
And we think that's this man's name, Ben-Hur, when it's simply saying son of Hur.
Right. And when we deal with that, and that's why I tell people, like, a name is more like a sentence. When I say Esaac ben Israel, that is Esau, son of Israel. And even when you said when we read Israel, for your name shall be no more Jacob, your name shall be Israel, for you are a prince with Elohim. So there's a sentence. So you have to ask yourself, what sentence is your name saying about you? And this is something that we, have to reiterate to newer people coming in the word, because there's always that propensity to take the old name and combine it with either Yahweh or Elohim or something like that. But you find that definition does not mean what you think it means, and that may end up being an issue. Let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 25. And from what I'm hearing, the website thing on this computer is not doing what we need it to do. But our media guy is tied up and not able to be here. So far, it seems to be working on the Sabbath, but that is a different computer that we're using on that day, because we're in a different location within the church. So you guys just bear with us, please, while we work this out. Deuteronomy chapter 25, and let's read verses 5 through 10.
If brethren dwell together, and one of them die, and have no child, the wife of the dead shall not marry without unto a stranger. Her husband's brother shall go in unto her, and take her to him to wife, and perform the duty of an husband's brother unto her. And it shall be that the firstborn which she beareth shall succeed in the name of his brother which is dead, that his name be not put out of Israel.
And we know, this is why we have to go over our culture, because we know right now, if that happens in this day and time, that a brother dies and that woman turn around and marry his brother, man, they would call this sister all kind of dirty names. This is our culture. This is the culture that was given unto the children of Israel. This was given by Yahweh. Man does not have the right to say what he likes or doesn't like. Don't nobody care nothing about what you like. The God of Israel has set his order, his culture for how he wants that to be done. There's nothing that we can say about that to change any of that. So now you have this, and this is why it's interesting that he gives this, but then he also gives something that's very important if you don't do it. You have to imagine and look at that, because you got, for various reasons, people may not want to deal with that particular law. See, because we fair weather kind of Hebrews at times. People will remind you of Yahweh work for them, but when it don't work for them, now they got a problem with Yahweh's law. So they cool with Yahweh until it become their way. Go ahead.
Verse 7. And if the man like not to take his brother's wife, then let his brother's wife go up to the gate unto the and say, my husband's brother refused to raise up unto his brother a name in Israel. He will not perform the duty of my husband's brother.
The duty of my husband's brother. Go ahead.
Then the elders of his city shall call him and speak unto him, and if he stand to it, and say, I like not to take her.
Right. So when the elders call him, they're giving him an opportunity to back off of this position that he has taken. See? Because this ain't about you. This ain't about what is convenient for you. This is the culture of Israel. This woman is in this family. She stays in this family. Go ahead.
Then shall his brother's wife come unto him in the presence of the elders, and loose his shoe from off his foot, and spit in his face, and shall answer and say, so shall it be unto that man that will not build up his brother's house.
Right. So now this man has got a spit in his face in front of the authoritative figures within the community. Go ahead.
And his name shall be called in Israel, the house of him that has his shoe loose.
So now the house of him that has his shoe loosed, he has now created this name that is completely disrespectful. He does not have a worthy name at all within Israel, and this is a serious heavyweight now, because when you get down to even the simplest of things, a man's word was his bond, your name. This is one of those things where, especially when you go down to the country, the first thing they ask you is, who boy is you? Who boy you? See, they starting to run down who your folks were, and then they automatically are considering the reputation that your family has. So that name means something. See, nowadays we just name things, or name kids by what sounds good. People don't really have or consider that there's a definition that goes along with that, or supposed to be a definition that goes along with that. Go ahead.
In this situation here, you see that not only did the name go to him, it reflected his whole house.
Mm-hmm.
They threw his whole house. So the whole house is of him who has his shoe loose.
I mean, consider, if this is the man, and his name in verse 10, and his name should be called in Israel, the house of him that has his shoe loose. Consider what kind of problem that carries on everybody else, because everything comes in through the mail. The problems, the blessing. So now he carries this on his house because it was too inconvenient for him to raise up seed unto his brother. Do we finish that? Let's go to Daniel chapter 1. The last thing somebody wants to have is their name carry no weight at all amongst the community of Israel.
We see in the book of Ruth, there is a way that you can deal with it and get out of it, if that other person accepts.
But see, but that there it is. There was, that way was